Well, good afternoon to you. It is 4:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, we have Sarah Parshall Perry joining us from the Heritage Foundation. She'll talk to us about the latest changes Joe Biden is making to the law on his own, unilaterally, to weaken protections for women. Truly, that's ahead. Chris Bedford is here at 5 o'clock. Will give us his sense of what's going on in the madness that is Congress right now. And Ashley Oliver joins us from the Washington Examiner at 5:30 with a look at the effort to take down Trump through the court system. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Israel striking back against Iran last night. All the headlines coming through as you had a bunch of missiles and drones flying in to Iran, striking Iran proper. The Israelis taking credit for those strikes. This was in reaction to last weekend's attempt by Iran to attack Israel. Thankfully, Israel and its Western allies, especially by way of that Iron Dome, were able to thwart much of the incoming attack coming from Iran. For more on all of this, I want to bring in Gabriel Noronha now, Executive Director of Polaris National Security and former State Department advisor. Sir, good to have you back with us.
Hey, good to be back here.
Just give us your sense of what happened last night. What was Israel able to do?
So Israel really demonstrated that to Iran that it has the military superiority to do anything it wants in Iran, but it chose not to do an escalatory attack. It did a very targeted pinprick attack in Iran in the city of Isfahan, which is in the center of Iran. And we're just learning now from Fox News that their strike hit an air defense system at a military base, probably one that actually guards one of the nuclear facilities at the nearby city of Natanz. So this is something designed to make Iran feel insecure, but not feel terribly provoked. So I think what we can expect here now is that Iran is not likely going to respond. The regime itself actually pretended that nothing happened. They said that Israel launched a couple quadcopters in and that they were all shot down. So what we're seeing here is Israel did the response it needed to show deterrence and show resolve, but not anything that would launch into anything further.
You know, now you have two events over the course of the past week, which I would say, I don't know if this is the right word for it, but they seem emasculating for Iran, because Iran sends hundreds of missiles and rockets, including by way of its proxies, towards Israel. Israel is successful, again, with help from some of its allies as well, in shooting down 99% of those projectiles in some of the most amazing technology I've ever seen on camera. And then Israel's able to turn around the following week and strike targets on the ground and disable them, apparently. And Iran is feckless at stopping it.
You're exactly right. And what's more is the system that Israel is destroying in Iran is actually the Russian air defense system known as the S-300, according to public reports. So kind of demonstrating we have the upper hand. If you even think about getting a nuclear program to the weaponization side, we can take it out. We have the ability to operate in your airspace. But you Iranians, you were trying to take this harsh revenge against Israel. You couldn't land a single thing except a few drones in the middle of the desert, and you killed a 7-year-old girl. That was all Iran was even able to do with their mass arsenal. So that comparison and contrast of capabilities is really spectacular, I think.
What happens psychologically for the Iranian regime and its leadership? Is it bad to be seen as this weak? Is it the kind of thing that will provoke some sort of show of force to try and convince people that they have strength?
Well, what we've seen is the regime is trying to sort of adapt by downplaying this all. They're making jokes. They're claiming nothing actually happened and that everything is Israeli propaganda. So they're trying to puff up and seem more impressive than they are.
Yeah.
Part of this is, again, they're a very insecure regime. Just a year and a half ago, we saw those massive protests led by women taking over streets across Iran. This is not a popular regime. This is not a regime that has the support of its public. And so you're going to see a lot of strange behavior from them trying to show that they're in charge, but they don't actually have the means to really stay in charge and control their borders like Israel can.
They've been looking for those means, though, for many years. They perhaps more than any country, maybe other than, say, well, North Korea is there, but they have naked ambitions for a nuclear weapon. Iran does.
They do.
How close are they, in your assessment, Gabriel, to actually securing one?
So what they are doing is they are building up a large amount of enriched uranium at a high amount so that if they chose to go for this breakout, they could have 3 bombs in about a month and 8 to 10 in 3 months. Now, they're very worried about doing that breakout, because the moment they try doing that, you then invite an Israeli or even perhaps U.S. military strike to take out that nuclear program. But what they want is to be able to have a whole arsenal that they could announce all at once. Having one nuclear weapon is actually a little dangerous because that invites an attack. Having 10, 20 is something where the other side really has to think twice before they're launching an attack.
Right. Then that makes you, it gives you a shield. You become kind of a shot caller in the region as a result of having those nuclear weapons, which is not going to be good for Israel if Iran obtains those. Okay, so that's the state of play. Now, back here in the United States, my impression has been that the White House has been telling Israel, "Don't do this." What do you think the White House position is on Israel's decision to strike Iran last night?
The very first thing we heard, even on Saturday night after Israel got attacked, before the dust had settled, we heard leaks from the White House of them telling Bibi, "Don't attack, take this as a win, do nothing." Again, if we, the United States, were attacked by over 300 missiles and drones, even if it didn't kill anyone, we would still strike back and strike back hard. I'm very glad that Israel chose to ignore Biden. This is the same guy that told President Obama not to go in to Pakistan and take out Osama bin Laden. I'm glad President Obama ignored him. I'm glad Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu ignored him. But what we've seen here is Israel's got the determination in showing Iran, hey, we would like to act with U.S. blessing and U.S. support, but if we don't have it, we'll act anyways.
Interesting. Yeah. No, it's definitely within Israel's interest. You've got to demonstrate strength in the wake of being attacked. There's no question, or else you'll just get rolled over. I mean, and I think about like even China floating a spy balloon over the United States. The MO of the Biden administration is just let it happen. Just accept it. Oh, well, I guess they flew a spy balloon over the country. That's not a position of strength, and he's trying to encourage other countries to follow his doctrine, which is just let things happen to you.
If I could define the Biden strategy in 2 words, it's don't escalate. That's not a good strategy. That's a really bad tactic, I think, but they pretended that this is a strategy or a whole doctrine. And you're right, they're trying to escalate this with Israel. They're trying to do this with Ukraine. They're telling Ukrainians don't hit any Russian drone facilities, don't hit any Russian energy facilities. Again, it's really strange for us to be telling our allies, don't defend yourself. It'll provoke your enemy who already attacked you. Again, fortunately, I think our allies have seen this advice and said this doesn't make sense for us. What concerns me is that all this advice is being done in public. It's one thing, you look back to World War II. FDR and Churchill disagreed a lot. There were really serious disagreements between our top generals, and the public never knew about it for decades. That's exactly how this should be. If you have a disagreement with your ally, you have frank conversations behind closed doors, and you support them 110% in public. We've got that flipped, it seems. That's not a good way to treat your allies.
Yeah, and also, can I just ask you about the fact that the Biden administration seems to continue to want to support both sides of the war in between Israel and Ukraine? We could talk about Russia. We could talk about Russia and Ukraine separately.
Both places, yeah.
In both cases, yes. The Biden administration has either taken actions or directly assisted both sides of these conflicts. And in particular, when it comes to Israel versus Hamas in Gaza, the Biden administration has routinely offered assistance into Gaza, which is controlled by Hamas and is only to Hamas's benefit, Additionally, right now, Congress, as we speak, is working up legislation that will, yes, give aid to Israel, but additionally will send aid into Gaza as well. What is the point of all of this? Why are we assisting both sides of the same conflict?
It seems to me that the National Security Council is run by people with social justice or social work PhDs, and not a single one with security or defense experience from this. This isn't how you win wars. You don't win wars by taking care of your opponents. You win wars by killing your opponent's military and degrading them. And so there's this, again, obsession in this administration with let's help the people who are at war with us. That's one thing to do. After World War II, we had the Marshall Plan. We rebuilt war-torn Europe. We rebuilt war-torn Germany even. But that was after we won the war and we had taken over their governments and had installed friendly governments that we could work with. Here, it's all reversed. It's let's take care of our enemy before we defeat them. And if that's the plan, you're never going to defeat them. We won't take care of Hamas. We won't weaken the Russian regime and to get them out of Ukraine. We won't weaken the Iranian regime to collapse. So again, I just don't see the strategy. I don't see their path to victory in any of these theaters.
And finally, I'd be remiss in not mentioning Biden's assistance to Iran, which has been extensive. And the reason the Iranian terror regime is able to continue raining terror down upon the Middle East is thanks in no small part to all of the financial advantages given to them by Joe Biden. Why doesn't the White House ever reckon with this? Or at least when it's brought up, they pretend like, oh, it's just humanitarian aid. Stop.
Yeah, and we're talking about, for viewers, listeners, this is $90 billion in oil that increased levels from the Trump administration levels. So even if you took the Trump administration levels, continue to constant, these guys have gotten $90 billion more, plus that $6 billion in a hostage payment, plus another $10 billion that's being discussed out of this complicated Iraq situation. There's this, again, obsession, I think, in the administration of we don't want to provoke the Iranians into escalating, so we're going to let them have a good enough economy so they don't feel threatened. We're going to let them export as much oil as they want because we don't want them blowing up ships in sort of a temper tantrum. The issue, of course, is that Iran's terror budget, their military budget, is all funded straight out of these oil sales. So what they're kind of doing is they're trying to kick the can to someone else. That's what we saw with the JCPOA. The JCPOA was all about kicking the can to a future president. That's what we're seeing with Biden doing now, kicking the can down the road, hoping someone else will have to deal with a nuclear Iran, but not him, and certainly not before an election. That's the strategy.
Some strategy. Gabriel Noronha, Executive Director of Polaris National Security, former State Department advisor as well. Gabriel, good to have you with us today. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Always a pleasure.
Take a phone call. I've got John calling in from Gore, Virginia, line 1. John, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, sir. Hey, John.
Hey, Vince. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up. I'm sure you already know about a potential Afghanistan debacle part 2 that's going on in what do they call it? AB 101 and 102, which is down in Niger. We got 1,000 troops down there, and they're trying to kick them out of there. The coalition or whatever that's down there that's taking over the government, and they're rioting and shit down there or something. I don't know what exactly is going on, but our guys aren't getting their meds. They're not getting their foods, resupplies. They're kind of cut off.
Have you been, John, following this for a while?
No. I was just I happened to catch it. It might have been Breitbart or something this morning. And I'm like, damn, it's just one of those things. Maybe it has been ongoing because I thought I heard about something before that we had troops there, but not that they were really cut off.
So let me just, I want to bring people up to speed on what we know because Congressman Matt Gaetz has brought this to the public's attention. Yesterday, he confronted the Army Secretary about the fact that there are U.S. troops right now in Niger who can't get medicine. And he released a report yesterday saying that U.S. troops that are based there faced imminent risk, and there's a cover-up of intelligence going on by the State Department. Here's some audio just to give you some sense of the hearing yesterday. Can you hear that okay, Dave, by the way, back in studio? Is it? Okay, good. No? Stand by. I've got a better feed of it. Here it is.
General, do you know what is going on in Niger right now?
I know there's some challenges over there in Niger right now, and I don't think that we are actually in charge of that mission that's on the ground.
Well, yeah, we just heard the secretary say you've got soldiers there, so we're gonna dive into that to some extent. Do you know what the status is of diplomatic overflights to our installations in Niger?
Yeah, I'm vaguely tracking that that's a challenge over there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not a challenge, it's binary. Are we allowed right now to do diplomatic overflights in Niger? Yes or no?
I don't know exactly. I'm not tracking it that close.
Do you know if we're allowed to do those diplomatic overflights?
I don't, but I'm sure the AFRICOM commander does.
Yeah, but you guys just said it's in the budget you're asking for to do these train and equip missions. One of them is in Niger. In Niger right now, the government has stopped us from doing diplomatic overflight missions. So we have Army soldiers right now in Niger who aren't getting their troop rotations, who aren't getting their medicine, who aren't getting their supplies, who aren't getting their mail, and the two senior people in the United States Army are sitting before me, and it's like, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Are you going to do anything for the soldiers that are in Niger right now who can't get medicine? Yes or no?
Congressman, certainly we can talk to General Langley and make sure that...
Oh, I've talked to General Langley. He comes in here and never has really good answers. I mean, I asked him for information about how many of the coup leaders we had trained, including in Niger, and Ghana and Mali and the Ivory Coast. This is Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya.
This is video posted to his Twitter account flashing back to his question and answer. So, John, in other words, this is a very live story right now, and Matt Gaetz bringing some attention to it. That, as far as I can tell, John, that's the way a congressman is supposed to do his job, to actually ask questions like this and embarrass these people if they don't have good answers.
And they're lucky they reached out to him, so that's a good thing, too.
Yeah, they did. It sounds like some of these guys are his constituents, and he's representing them here in Congress, demanding answers. And look at those officials; they don't even have any because they don't know anything about it. It's too much. Thank you, John. Thanks for helping us bring some attention to that issue too. If we get meaningful updates, we'll share them. Coming up, Sarah Parshall Perry will join us from the Heritage Foundation. Joe Biden is weakening protection for women nationwide today with the stroke of a pen. She explains how. Hey, good afternoon to you. 4:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up today, Chris Bedford joins us at 5 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on the chaos going on in the United States House of Representatives. And then Ashley Oliver is joining us from the Washington Examiner at 5:30. We talked to her about the chaos going on in our court system as the left tries to take down Donald Trump before he gets to the election. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Joe Biden is actively erasing women. Major changes today to Title IX protections for women. The Department of Education under Joe Biden announcing this today. That would erase the category of biological woman entirely. So being a woman really doesn't really mean anything. For more on this, I want to bring in Sarah Parshall Perry, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation and former Senior Counsel at the United States Department of Education. Sarah, good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Vince.
Give me a sense of what happened here today. How monumental is this?
Well, it will completely upend and change the entire state of American education. That is not, I believe, an overstatement. This has just expanded protections for the sexes, male and female, as they've been understood for more than 50 years, to include sexual orientation, pregnancy or related conditions, and importantly, gender identity. Now, we know Title IX was sort of the crowning achievement of the feminist movement, right? So this was, they got work equality, failure to sort of have to suffer discrimination within an employment context. And right after that, on its heels, came Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972. This was really something that was pushed by a lot of Democrats, a lot of progressive lefties at the time, Gloria Steinem, Bella Abzug. These are individuals who really wanted equality. We as conservatives thought it could lead to worse things. And today, one of those worst things came into being. That means that every opportunity, space private space, bathroom, locker room, housing accommodation, scholarship opportunity, including athletics, is now open to men who identify as women but want to overtake women's opportunities.
So when they say they're expanding protections to include men, if they're expanding protections for women to include men, what they're really doing is they're stripping women of protections.
Oh, 110%, which is why it's almost laughable on its face. I mean, this is a civil rights law that actually violates civil rights law. It actually turns Title IX's scheme that talks about the two sexes, male and female, parent, mother and father, son or daughter, all of the implementing regulations talk about both sexes, each sex. It's very clear that a binary, male and female, is the whole foundation on which the entire statute rests. But no matter for the Biden administration, we have now seen an expansion that is likely going to have repercussions for years to come. And it's not just the expansion of this gender identity. It is also the removal of the due process protections for individuals accused of sexual harassment or sexual assault, things like the right to call witnesses, the right to be represented by counsel, and the failure to use appropriate preferred pronouns is now sufficient to mount a Title IX sex harassment claim.
Okay, let me back up to the basics of how Title IX operates when it comes to various institutions across the country. What this means is anywhere that receives federal funding would have to abide by these rules. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And let me tell you, that could be as little as $1, and it could be received directly or it could be received indirectly. And that's just about every institution in the country. Now, there are a handful of schools that accept zero federal funding whatsoever. But generally, even if you take a child on, let's say, a reduced lunch program, or you admit a student to your college on a Pell Grant, or you take somebody who has borrowed through student loans from the federal government, you are subject to Title IX, whether you like it or not. These rules are going into effect and will be fully operational as of August 1st of this year.
So beginning August 1st, if you have a student who receives a federal loan attending your institution, you will not be able to ensure that bathrooms are separated between men and women any longer at your school.
Absolutely. That's correct.
Okay. Additionally, locker rooms will follow the same rules. Men can now use women's locker rooms in these institutions, and in fact, they're so protected that if you stop a man from entering a woman's locker room, you could be subject to a Title IX violation.
That's exactly it. And then what happens, Vince, when you have biological women filing claims for discrimination, and they are essentially being graded against biological men on their discrimination claims. So if a man comes into a woman's restroom and she files a complaint with the Department of Education for sexual harassment, sexual discrimination, how will the department determine whose claim wins? They've actually set up a rule that naturally conflicts with itself because there are people, well-meaning and very rational, intellectually honest people who recognize there are only two sexes. They are distinct. They are immutable. They cannot be changed. And someone's subjective gender identity cannot trump what the Supreme Court has recognized as an immutable characteristic like sex and race, as it always has.
Does this additionally impact sports broadly?
So it's interesting what the Biden Department of Education has said. They have said there was a separate rulemaking taking place. I was on a call with Catherine Lehman, Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights today. She was asked a direct question. Is the department moving forward with the separate athletics rule? She did not answer the question. Instead, she simply said, we're very excited to be releasing today's rule. Well, I'll tell you, there are 31 references to athletics in this 1,500-page rule. And they mention the failure to discriminate, the prohibition against gender identity discrimination in extracurricular activities. So quite frankly, it's a bit of a head fake. They've told us that it doesn't include athletics. You know, we have a separate rule for that, but they won't tell us if the rule is moving forward, and they won't explain athletics.
My mind was just rattled by you explaining all this because I was reminded of, I think I saw a headline in the last week or so that the Biden administration is looking to bury their determination about sports until after the election. Because
that's exactly it.
because obviously this is very politically untenable. But most people can very easily see why it would be a very bad idea to allow men into women's sports. So they're trying to hide that detail until after the election. Do I have that right?
100%. And I'm going to tell you, it polls terribly for this administration. 70% of the American electorate, no matter what the party, does not want gender identity to determine sports participation. They want sex-separated sports, and why wouldn't they? There are physiological, obvious distinctions between males and females, and that is why it polls horribly. I think they want to pretend they never attempted to engage in this, but they're still moving it in through the back door. And as soon as we see a complaint from a biological male who is denied participation on a girls' lacrosse team because of his gender identity, and that complaint's filed with the Department of Education, I can guarantee you who's going to win.
I'm not asking you to make a spiritual assessment, but this is demonic to me. What I'm watching.
100%.
And
100%.
What is the motivating factor that underlines all this? Is it as simple as like special interests? What is making them embrace this insanity so rampantly?
You know, that's such a great question. I think it's a function of a number of different issues. I mean, the president from day one, his first executive order in office as the sitting president of the United States was to issue an executive order to every federal agency, HUD, DOJ, HHS, education, to all interpret sex to include gender identity. Well, when your commander-in-chief directs his federal agencies to manipulate law and federal regulations, by the way, over 100 of them that contain sex discrimination prohibitions. That is a president with an agenda. We also know that the, quote, gender-affirming medical care industry is a $3 billion a year industry.
Right.
There is the medical community that wants these things to pass, cultural elites who have bought the nonsense that sex is the same as gender identity, and celebrities for whom this particularly vulnerable population of adolescent kids looks to for their guidance. This is a significant sort of whole of culture movement that I think is very well funded and very vocal, and it's got a lot of Americans running scared.
Yeah, they're normalizing the abuse of children and the betrayal of women, and they dress it up under the guise of decency that this is what's supposed to happen. You mentioned, I want to go back to kangaroo courts now for a moment. We all remember like the Duke lacrosse case or any number of false accusations leveled at men on college campuses, and just accusations broadly, the way that they're done. The left has advocated for years for due process to essentially disappear entirely, and that for a female accuser to be reflexively believed and for the male's life to be destroyed. What's the effect of today's Title IX ruling? What happens?
Oh, well, what we do is we go back to what's called the single investigator model, okay? And these are young, often recent college graduates themselves. I have to laugh. One was actually in my Twitter feed today when I was breaking down the different portions of the rules. This is an individual who was just appointed Title IX coordinator at an ostensibly religiously affiliated institution, who identifies as a gay, genderqueer Latino man. And he's probably all of 25, maybe 30 years old, so not that far out of grad school himself, with no direct experience enforcing Title IX. And again, I have to laugh because these are people who are literally determining the future of these individuals' academics and their career possibilities. Be accused of sexual assault and sexual harassment and sexual misconduct without the opportunity to, let's say, introduce evidence or be represented by counsel or to cross-examine, all of which have been gutted. You've really returned to a guilty until proven innocent standard. And what's more, they have actually taken what the previous administration did, which was the clear and convincing evidence, and they moved that standard down to the preponderance of the evidence, which we like to call the 50% rule. So it's really something that promises to potentially upend the lives of real innocent people up, down, and sideways.
You kidding? I know this is not specifically the topic of this interview, but on this issue, the way that sexual assault is handled, for instance, on college campuses, you ever notice like the left doesn't want courts to litigate this? They just want there to be like some campus tribunal that handles it.
Yes.
And meanwhile,
Yeah.
with the military, they want to remove the chain of command and say, no, commanders can't handle sex assault cases. This needs to be handled by local prosecutors. What's the deal there? Why are they opposed to the military handling it, but want universities to actually run tribunals about sexual assault?
Well, that's exactly it, because when you involve a true criminal procedure, then you get the automatic due process protections that the Constitution secures and case law provides. You have the right to an attorney. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to cross-examine. They don't offer these opportunities. So we're returning to what many of us who are conservative legal scholars call lovingly the kangaroo court system. One person acts as judge, jury, and executioner, and literally you have such a diminished right to be able to counter whatever the claims are that are being offered by the accusing individual, that your guarantee is essentially that you're walking in with this imprimatur of guilt, and you have to prove that you're not actually guilty, but not given the tools to do so.
Back on this issue of Title IX and the way it's going to impact men and women at school, you mentioned that schools are now going to be forced to use, quote, preferred pronouns for the students and faculty, I guess, who are at these institutions. Does this mean that if a student doesn't use the, quote, preferred pronoun for another student, that a school is going to be more prone to punishing that student now in order to make sure that they don't run afoul of Title IX?
That's a great question, and the short answer is yes. In fact, again, on the stakeholder call where I listened quietly to Catherine Lehman explain sort of exact parameters of this particular rule, she posed a direct question about misgendering. And she said, yes, there are going to be instances where the failure to use an individual's preferred pronouns is going to rise to the level of sexual harassment under the Title IX regulation. And that's it. It's right there. That's exactly. So I'm thinking of all of these individuals who are walking in with, for example, moral objections or conscience objections or
religious.
For God's sake, scientific. That's exactly it. Scientific, religious objections to being forced to say something, which, by the way, the Supreme Court has just held in the 303 creative case versus Elenis from last term. You can't be compelled to create or force or speak a message that you don't want to communicate. It is patently unconstitutional, but there you have it from the Secretary of Civil Rights' actual mouth.
I mean, just to be more specific, I mean, and you are, this is anti-religious bigotry. If you're a Bible-believing Christian, you find in Genesis that God made the man and woman, and if you hold that belief within these institutions, you are going to come under, you'll be in trouble based on these Title IX changes. And my impression was that the First Amendment of the Constitution outpaces any demented left-wing political priority.
Absolutely. In fact, what the Supreme Court held in 303 Creative was no law is immune from the bounds of the Constitution. So sorry to break it to you, Catherine Lehman, but it's really not a legal provision to say that you can force an individual and lip service to the First Amendment, Vince. They really do. They try hard to sort of, square the round peg, but she has to admit that the rule is going to be patently unconstitutional because she admitted in an open forum with about 100 other stakeholders listening that these were going to be sufficient for sexual harassment claims.
And this madness begins officially August 1st.
It is in place in every sort of receiving public institution for, again, $1 is the standard, directly or indirectly, August 1st of this year, conveniently, for the beginning of the new school year.
Sarah Parshall Perry is a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Thank you very much for your time today, Sarah. Good to have you. Hope to have you back again soon so we can untangle all of this. Earlier, I played some audio for you from Montgomery County, Maryland today of Mark Elrich getting all angry that a reporter asked why a would-be attacker at Wooten High School in Montgomery County, being transgender, it's a girl who identifies as a boy, was planning on attacking a school. And Mark Elrich didn't prioritize the transgender thing. In fact, they didn't even mention it. And Chris Carter's on the phone. He's the reporter who asked about this, line one. Chris, hey, sir, good afternoon.
Hey, Vince, thanks for having me back on the show.
Yeah, so you asked about the transgender status, and that seems like an important question, doesn't it?
Well, in today's political climate, I might disagree, but we've had 4 of these very recently, and the pattern is the same. It is all a young person that was a female that's now identifying as a male. And yesterday when I was looking at this story, basically, I said, okay, well, that just looks like a young Asian man that was disturbed, and thank God he didn't shoot up the school. And I threw it out. And then I opened the New York Post this morning, and it says transgender. And I'm thinking to myself, this is my hometown.
Yes.
Why are they, in journalism, we call it burying the lead.
Exactly.
It's even worse than burying the lead, Vince. It's spreading disinformation. These people are at the highest levels. They are responsible for the bully pulpit. I want to know where the county leadership is on this. I want to know what outreach they've made to the trans community and why this keeps happening over.
Well, Ulrich got
over.
all mad at you for asking the question. How dare you? Blah blah blah. How come we have to prioritize this? I'll tell you why. Because according to the police, she was researching the transgender murderer who attacked the Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee. It seems like a highly relevant detail, doesn't it, Chris?
Iowa, Nashville, Colorado Springs, all of them look the same.
Yeah, it's too much. Hey, Chris, thank you for doing real journalism today. If you're looking for this, you can find it on my Twitter account, and you'll find Chris's account there as well. I shared his video today. All right, hold on. Coming up, I've got, Chris Bedford's going to be with us, the great Chris Bedford, then Ashley Oliver from the Washington Examiner, all ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show.